India is set to surpass China as the world's most populous country with an estimated 1.4286 billion people mid-year, compared to China's 1.4257 billion, according to data released by the United Nations Population Fund. Although India and China will account for more than one-third of the global population, population growth has been slowing in both countries, with a sharper decline seen in China. While there is widespread anxiety over population size, the UNFPA suggests that the focus should be on giving women more power to control when and how they have children, which would shore up demographic resilience. A survey by the Sydney-based Lowy Institute reveals that the number of Chinese Australians experiencing racist abuse fell by one-third between 2020 and 2022. While incidents of racism are still not uncommon, the survey shows that Australia has made significant progress. The majority of respondents rated Australia as a good place to live, and their sense of belonging to the country increased. Younger people and those born in Australia were slightly more likely to report negative experiences over the period, which covers the COVID-19 pandemic and China tensions. WeChat remains a prevalent source of news, but respondents increasingly question the accuracy of the information it provides. As the Russia-Ukraine war marks its 420th day, let's take a moment to reflect on the key events that have unfolded. From ceasefire violations to diplomatic talks, tensions have been high. It's time for us to ask ourselves, how much longer will this conflict continue, and when will we see a peaceful resolution? North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has announced that the country has developed its first military spy satellite, which would require a long-range missile. Kim stated that the satellite's deployment is a priority to counter threats from the United States and South Korea. The U.S. and South Korean militaries have been increasing their combined drills to strengthen their deterrence against North Korea's growing nuclear threats. However, Kim accused the two countries of expanding hostile military campaigns, while also advancing the country's military capabilities as a pretext to ratchet up pressure on Washington to make concessions. Despite repeated weapons testing in violation of UN resolutions, North Korea has avoided new censure due to Russia and China's refusal to support the tightening of sanctions. Brazilian President Lula has denounced the violation of Ukraine's territorial integrity, but has also called for mediation in the conflict, which has caused global consequences in terms of food and energy security. Lula previously inflamed international relations by blaming Ukraine for its part in the war and criticizing the U.S. and Europe for supplying it with weapons. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration criticized Lula's comments, accusing Brazil of parroting Russian propaganda. However, Lula's foreign policy advisor Celso Amorim clarified that Brazil defends the territorial integrity of Ukraine while calling for a negotiated peace. Fox News has settled a defamation lawsuit with Dominion Voting Systems for $787 million after the voting machine maker had launched a $1.6 billion lawsuit over the news network's coverage of the 2020 U.S. election. Dominion claimed that Fox News knowingly aired falsehoods about its voting machines to boost lagging viewership, as former President Donald Trump and his allies claimed the machines were used to rig the election. Fox maintains that it was only reporting on Trump's allegations and that its coverage was protected under constitutional free speech rights. The settlement means that the conservative news network will avoid a high-profile trial, and the settlement figure is roughly half of what Dominion had initially sought from Fox. Revelations from pre-trial proceedings have already been embarrassing for Fox, showing that many high-profile personalities privately balked at Trump's claims, but appeared to support the claims and praised him on air. Despite an internationally brokered truce, fighting erupted in Sudan as forces loyal to dueling generals battled for key locations in the capital. The regular army and the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, accused each other of violating the ceasefire, causing at least 185 deaths and a humanitarian catastrophe as the health system nears collapse. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric revealed that the fighting had not halted, and the situation risks drawing in actors from Sudan's region who have backed different factions. The conflict has stalled the plan for a shift to civilian rule after decades of autocracy and military domination in Sudan. Conflict has erupted in Sudan's Darfur region as the Army and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, battle for control. The RSF, a paramilitary group formerly made up of Arab tribal militias, is now fighting against the very army from which it originated. The region has suffered 2 decades of fighting and massacres, and the current violence is evoking painful memories of the past. Humanitarian workers have been killed in the crossfire, while witnesses reported that homes and warehouses belonging to international aid organizations have been looted by RSF fighters. The conflict may also prompt Arab tribes with close ties to the RSF to settle scores against non-Arab communities. Suffering could worsen if the international community does not monitor events closely. Sudan's army and rapid support forces are at odds, resulting in a power struggle and deadly clashes across the country. At least 185 lives were lost, and more than 1,800 people were injured in the three-day fighting, causing a humanitarian crisis due to water and electricity cuts and restricted access to hospitals. Even Khartoum's international airport was attacked, leaving passenger planes completely destroyed. The battles and artillery bombardment have paralyzed cities like Meroe, while significant clashes were reported in other areas, including North Darfur, South Darfur, and Kassala. It's unfortunate that a political row can wreak so much havoc and loss of life. The people of Sudan must avoid choosing between two bad options and look for a third alternative. Sudan has been plagued by military coups over the decades, none of which have brought prosperity to the country. Coup leaders often fail to give up power voluntarily and tend to turn on each other once in power. Military leaders who become political leaders politicize the military and militarize politics and often resort to using force. In Sudan, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and General Mohammed Hamdan Hamida Dagalo have used deceitful tactics to maintain their power. As the fighting continues in Sudan, the lesser, more mobile Rapid Support Forces, RSF, is fighting the slower military forces. However, Sudan needs a national army with legitimate leadership accountable to the government. A civilian-led, democratically elected government is the third option Sudan so desperately needs.